Today we'll be discussing on planning construction resources, and the part what we are going to cover is materials. This part is further divided into different subparts or subsections. The subsection what we'll be dealing with is material provisioning. There is a sequence which has to be followed to carry out planning of material provisioning. The first step is to have a study contract, and studying contract documents will help us to identify the items which are required to be purchased. This is followed by estimation of quantities to be purchased, floating inquiry indents to locate sources of supply. Pre-qualification of vendors is the next step which has to be followed. Analyzing quotations received and submitting it to the client and pre-qualifying vendors is the next step, which is followed by inviting quotations from shortlisted vendors. After which, submitting proposals for technical financial approvals from the client is done, which is followed by negotiations with the vendors in order to get a desired rate, and after which we have to finalize the supply order. The next step is placing purchase orders and monitor order execution. Pre-shipment inspections are conducted as and when necessary. In the next step, we have to inspect the goods received along with initiating the action for in-transit losses, thefts, damages, short shipments is carried out. The last step, which is called as closing step, in which closing material supply contract is carried out, and this is carried out after confirming that there is no further demand from concerned site manager. After which we have to inform the accounts, planning, costing team as well as project manager accordingly about closing of order. The next step is the material procurement process, which is done in 3 steps. The first step is material procurement inquiries, followed by finalization of resources or sources of material procurement, and the last step is monitoring material delivery schedule. The first step, that is the material procurement inquiries, in which preliminary investigations for developing sources of the procurement of material are made by floating inquiry indents. So we have to float inquiry indents. After material inquiry indents contain quantities, specifications, delivery time, which is jointly prepared by project planning cell and material procurement department. These intents are processed by material procurement department for inviting quotations with the samples of material wherever applicable or wherever required. After receiving quotations, a comparative study of price, quality, delivery time, terms of delivery and payment term is made jointly by material in charge and project planning in charge. Other activities like comparing vendors' proposals with inquiry specifications and requirement is also carried out simultaneously. The resulting deviations are examined for acceptability. Thereafter, each acceptable quotation is analyzed for price, delivery time, and payment terms. A vendor enlistment is based on its size, capability, past performance, market reputation, and if necessary, this may be confirmed by a visit to the vendor's work. So this is an activity like checking the size of the establishment, his past performance, the financial capability, his market reputation plays a very important role in deciding the vendor. The key criteria for evaluating the potential of supplier to the delivery the right product at the right time should include following points. The quality of material, its past record, recent test reports, performance reports from old users, etc. Company's financial status so as to maintain a continuous supply. Company's management team and its professional competency and engineering skills so as to have after sales service and support service plays a very important role in deciding the supplier. The next step is finalization of source of material procurement. There are various stages which are encountered prior to the purchase decision, and the steps are as follows. First step is approval in principle for processing the proposals. In this particular stage, the quotation comparison sheet containing various proposals which has a financial implication is studied. To check the effect of profitability in case of major deviations from the original estimate and budget funds. In this phase, it is decided that the necessity to take up future changes or improvements in offers needs to be approved in principle by project management team prior to commencing further negotiations with the supplier, and this is done at first stage itself. This proposal in principle strengthens company's representatives engaged in future negotiations and avoids situations which may ultimately affect the reputation and credibility of the company. So basically in this particular stage, the quotations are called, a comparison sheet is prepared, we study the financial implications. Also, we check the profitability if some major deviations are to be carried out, and all the things have to be approved from the client. Before we have the final negotiations, we finalize the rates with the vendors, etc. The negotiations are to be carried out, and we have to have a in principle approval from the client. The next step is client's approval for proposed material. As per the terms of the agreement and the standard construction practice, the contractor submits proposal to the client or a consultant for the approval of the material. This is the first step wherein we take the approval from the client or a consultant. And when we submit this proposal or the agreement, we are also supposed to submit the samples of the material. The manufacturer who is going to supply or manufacture this material, his brief write-up, the test results of the material, the past performance, all those things have to be submitted to the client for the approval. Generally, if you see the overall scenario of the industry, a contractor is going to get the material for the approval which is very much economical to him, whereas the client, from the client side, he will aim for the material which meets the quality requirements and gives the best performance. One important thing we have to stress here is, or we have to see here is, no material procurement plan can work unless materials are approved by client. So unless and until there is an approval from a client, we are not going to get any procurement of the material. The next stage is the negotiation. The final stage is basically the negotiation stage. Negotiation of terms of supply. Here what is done is, this is done to finalize the price through negotiations by securing a better price offer. So we try to get a best price here. The next is to finalize the mode of transportation of material to the site. To finalize the payment terms, whether there is some credit facility which is given or will be awarded, all those things we have to see. To finalize prior delivery and post delivery inspections, quality control procedures, etc. have to be discussed here when we talk of negotiations. We also have to finalize the material delivery schedule. We have to finalize the guarantees and penalties. What will be the penalty if we get faulty material? All those things have to be carried out. Before closing the final negotiations, a recheck is done to ensure that the necessary documents needed for manufacturing and making supplies as per contract have been provided to the vendor by the contractor. The last step is monitoring material delivery schedule. In this particular part, it is after the negotiations are done, after the everything is finalized. It is this particular step gives a monitoring part. It monitors the delivery of the material, and there are some steps which are to be followed. The first step is prepare and monitor the material movement schedule, as when the material is going to reach the site, how it is going to be will be available, what is the mode of transportation, etc. has to be worked out in the first stage. Conduct pre-transportation inspections wherever necessary. Obtain periodic information on shipment transportation status. If it is to be material is supposed to reach from different states, then we are supposed to check the information about the shipment and the transportation status. Plan in advance for receiving materials at site. It should not happen that tomorrow we are having one particular activity and till today material is not available on site. So we have to plan it well in advance. So also we are supposed to finalize the unloading place so that there are no clashes on the site as far as placing of material is concerned. Then assess the construction management in checking the materials when received at the site for corrections of quality, quantity as per the requirement, and bring out discrepancies. If any discrepancy is found to the material management team, then we have to initiate action for timely replacement or ordering or claiming insurance or compensation as and when applicable.